when you saw that statue of Edward Colston in Bristol being dragged to the ground and dumped in the harbour where he would have kept his slave-trading ships, what were your feelings?
I saw that as an act of resistance. What you saw there with the destruction of Edward Colston's statue was, it represented the symbolic, breaking of chains, the racism chain, and that is what it symbolized. And you have to understand that this was a long time coming. Look, I think it's really important in all of this discussion to level set here. The United Kingdom is institutionally racist. No monument or statues immortalizing British imperialism is more important than a single Black British life. The Union Jack is not more important than a single Black British life. No desecration of a monument is as violent or as devastating as the desecration of Black lives. Properties can be replaced, Black lives can't. And it is indefensible for those who suggest otherwise. So what we saw there is an act of resistance, and the hypocrisy is palpable. Think about the fact that when Saddam Hussein's statue was destroyed, people in this country hailed it as acts of resistance. But here you have the destruction of the statue of a slave trader condemned as lawless and reckless.
Okay, well, let's go to Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage, what did you feel about the toppling of Saddam's statue by Iraqi citizens?
Well, I mean, I understand why they did it, but don't forget that same group of people have also been destroying historical monuments in Syria that are thousands of years old.
No, I'm talking specifically about the famous toppling of that statue was very symbolic, because what it showed the world is that, contrary to what the Iraqi authorities were saying about them winning the war, that was the moment the world realised they weren't. So it was a hugely important symbolic moment. Just on that one thing, the toppling of Saddam's statue, did you at the time feel good to see that statue come down?
No, because I thought it was mob rule. If you want to remove statues, if you want to change your architecture, you do that democratically and sensibly. And what we saw...
You genuinely didn't feel good that Saddam's statue was torn down by the people he'd oppressed for so long?
I'll tell you what, I thought the Iraq war was a huge mistake right from the start. I opposed it, and I'll tell you why. However bad Saddam Hussein may have been, he was secular. And my fear was that the toppling of Saddam in the way that we did it would lead to years and years.
Yeah, but I was opposed to the Iraq War too, but I certainly wasn't opposed to Iraqi citizens at the end, towards the end of that war, dragging down an emblem of a man who'd oppressed them. So you can be in both camps.
Exactly the same as Gaddafi. We got rid of secular dictators who did some terrible things, and we finished up allowing ISIS to thrive, civil wars, and even more deaths. But that is
OK, so Nigel Farage, should the Saddam statue be put back up then?
No, that is a separate debate, isn't it? It's an entirely separate debate.
That's the only debate we're having is about the statues. My question to you is, if you felt bad about the statue being pulled down, which I find I'm slightly incredulous, but if you did, should Saddam's statue now be put back up all round Iraq?
If you want to discuss the most violent scenes of mob rule, desecration of public monuments, including the attempt to set fire to the Union flag on the cenotaph, the desecration of Churchill's statue on the 76th anniversary of D-Day, and mob hysteria in Bristol, I'm very happy to sit and talk to you about it.
Should statues of Adolf Hitler have been allowed to stay up in Germany, in Berlin, for example?
And do you know why they're not there?
Tell me.
Because the German parliament democratically were voted in on manifestos that said they would remove the symbolism of their recent Nazi past.
And did you agree with that?
And here, yes, I believe in democracy, not violent, anarchic mob rule.
OK, so look, we're getting somewhere now. So you agree that statues of Adolf Hitler should not be in Germany? You agree?
I believe in democracy, Piers. Do you?
Yes,
Why
absolutely.
aren't
I'm just
you giving
asking
a
whether
straight answer?
I'm just asking you whether you believe a statue of Adolf Hitler should be in Germany. And unless I'm wrong, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, Nigel. But unless I'm wrong, you've just said statues of Adolf Hitler should not be in Germany. Am I right? Is that what you said?
I said a democratic decision was taken by people who were elected to say they would get rid of it.
But you said you agreed with it, is my point. You agree with it.
I disagree with violent mob
That's
rule.
not my question, Nigel. I'm only asking, do you agree with the democratic decision in Germany to remove statues of Adolf Hitler? Yes or no? I think you said yes.
I agree with all democratic decisions.
Okay. So, sorry, I don't want to be pedantic, but it is important.
You're being very pedantic.
No, I'm not. I'm trying to get to what you actually believe. It seems to me that what you actually... It seems to me you agreed, personally agreed... Well, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it seems to me what you said was you agreed with the German democratic decision to remove Adolf Hitler statues. Yes?
I think it was the right thing for Germany to do.
OK,
yes,
so if it's right for Germany, to remove statues of Adolf Hitler who oppressed their people, why is it wrong for the people of Bristol to say they don't want to have Edward Colston's statue to stay up, given that he was a slave owner and a slave trader responsible for the deaths of 20,000 people?
Because they did it as a violent mob, making their own decisions on what they thought was right and wrong. If the people of Bristol, and bear in mind that Edward Colston made a lot of money out of the Royal African Company, a lot of money, all right? He then was a big philanthropist, and there are many public buildings all over Bristol named after Edward Colston.
Jimmy
The history of
philanthropist.
Bristol, the history of Bristol.
Okay, Dr. Shola, I just want to ask you, put that point to you, the point that Nigel Farage makes about that this wasn't a democratic decision, because as I understand it, thousands of people had signed a petition for that statue to come down. There was popular support to get rid of that statue.
Yes, I mean, what Nigel has been tweeting, comparing what was going on in Bristol to the Taliban, and so is he, and to the Buddha statues. I find it unbelievable that Nigel is comparing a Buddha from the 6th century, a religious icon, to a statue of a slave trader, Edward Colston. This man was, I mean, he trafficked 84,000 people, 19,000 of them died, 12,000 were children. When they got to the countries, it was institutionalized killing, their lives, it was horrific. He'd be sold any time, killed, murdered. He made so much money. And Bristol has been, this statue has been an open wound in Bristol. It has been constantly, so they put guerrilla artworks on it, like balls and chains. They wanted it down. And it has been discussed. The council tried to put a plaque on it saying that he was involved in slavery. It was blocked, and instead they started talking about the philanthropy. And this philanthropy, saying that Edward Colston is a philanthropist, I mean, that's very disturbing. Jimmy Savile was seen as a great philanthropist. Jeffrey Epstein, who you're covering this morning, was seen as a great philanthropist. And it's very clear that Colston's philanthropy was directed to those who he felt supported his views.
Yeah, Nigel, I want to bring back Nigel here. Here's what I just can't really get. You agree that Germany was right to remove Adolf Hitler statues because... right?
It was a democratic decision.
I get that, but nobody got hurt in this mob rule you're talking about in Bristol. It's a statue. Correct. The statue got thrown in the water. Nobody got hurt. The police, I think, conducted themselves sensibly. Didn't create any situation. It's a bit of statue. But my question really for you is defending Edward Colston and his right to still preside over the people of Bristol, is that really a hill you want to die on, given you agree that Germany was right to get rid of Hitler?
I am, Piers. I am the biggest Wilberforce supporter you will ever meet. He opposed the entirety of British media, of big business, and of politics. He was like the Eurosceptic of his day, taking on the establishment.
He was a slave owner and slave trader, Nigel. He traded in slavery and black people.
Let us remember that Edward Colston was just part of the Royal African Company. It was founded.
It was a huge part.
What's that saying the Schutzstaffen were only part of the Nazis? What are you talking about?
It was backed by Samuel Pepys. Now, if you want to stop teaching his diaries in British schools, you can do so. The point here is, if you start to unpick history, you don't quite know where you were going to finish.
So why
up.
do you agree? Why do you agree then? All right, but Nigel, with respect, why do you agree then that Germany was right to get rid of Hitler statues? There's no consistency to that position.
Let me attempt to credit you with being able to think logically.
All right.
If the people of Bristol wanted to remove the Colston statue, of course that is a reasonable thing for them to want to do. They vote for people.
Thousands of people did want that to happen.
Can I just say,
Dr. Shola.
Yes.
Dr. Shola.
Can I just say that
If you want
Nigel Farage embodies what is wrong with this country. He exemplifies how some white people will whitewash the oppression of Black people as their own so that they can accuse Black lives, just as, as has been happening, they can accuse it of an anti-white agenda. Kate is absolutely right. Nigel Farage equates the Black Lives Movement to the Taliban, an extremist group, which is not what happened. And the only reason he did that, and which is also the reason why he can't give you a straight answer on Adolf Hitler, is because he chose to do it to incite hate amongst racists and white supremacists. There is no justification for statues that immortalize slavery, immortalize British imperialism to remain standing. Do you know why? It has no historical benefit. And I'll tell you why as well. It embodies the racism that Black people experience today.
All right, so Nigel Farage, just to clarify, why did you compare Black Lives Matter protesters to the Taliban?
Do you know, the BBC have consistently over the last week refused to tell people the truth about Black Lives Matter. The slogan, Black Lives Matter, and the wanting to end injustice and inequality is a laudable aim. The organisation, Black Lives Matter, is a far-left Marxist organisation whose chief aim is to defund and close down police forces, so that we would live under anarchy.
Oh, you're full of such utter nonsense, Nigel Farage. I understand that you're struggling to be relevant, but let me tell you something. The only thing you're an expert on, Nigel Farage, the only thing you're an expert on right now is your backside, because every word out of your mouth stinks. That is an utter lie. The Black Lives Matter, it represents the fight against racism in this country and wherever it is that exists. So everything you're saying is utter rubbish.
It's utter rubbish. And how can you be seriously on this show saying that Black Lives Matter is a Marxist organisation about defunding the police? Nigel, this is just outrageous what you are saying. Black people suffer so much in this country, the institutionalised racism. They are dying from COVID. People encourage immigration hatred. You have done the same yourself. And now you are encouraging people to compare Black Lives Matter to the Taliban when they are asking for justice and for equality in this country. And I am very disturbed by this talk of pulling down statues means the end of history. Whose history do we mean? In 1895, when Colston was put up, they could have put up an abolitionist. They could have put up Alado Equiano, who fought for abolition. They didn't. They put up a slave trader. So statues are not natural phenomena. They're not a mountain. They are basically a group of powerful people decide who we should venerate, who we should admire. And we have been told, the people of Bristol have been told to admire Colston. I heard that school children were told to throw petals at him, and they had tried to bring it down so many times, it wasn't working, and so they brought it down. And people say to me, where is this going to stop? It's madness. Well, it did stop. There's Colston all over Bristol. They didn't do anything else. They put the statue in the sea where he would have thrown the people he trafficked. It is out,
Okay, let's bring back Nigel. Nigel, you haven't really explained. Nigel, do you understand? Nigel, do you understand how, to many people who feel utterly incensed by what happened to George Floyd, who feel incensed by ongoing racism in this country, I've got to say, I've been appalled by some of the stuff I've read on Twitter in the last week. There's no doubt. I don't believe this is a racist country, but I think we've got a lot of racists in this country. And I'm afraid it's all been pouring out this week in the wake of George Floyd's murder. But to liken the protesters to the Taliban, one of the most evil, oppressive groups of people in the world.
It's an incendiary and inflammatory accusation.
And incendiary, Nigel. Why would you do that?
Let Nigel answer.
Why would you do that?
Well, he's finding that very difficult. The Taliban love to blow up and destroy historical monuments from a different time that they don't approve.
Who's blowing anything up, Nigel?
What we saw at the weekend was the most appalling example of mob rule. I'll make the point one more time.
Nigel Farage, you cannot say it's the most appalling example of mob rule when you are comparing them to people who literally blow things up and are responsible for the worst atrocities. I mean, that's a deliberate comparison.
That's because Nigel is a racist. What else do you expect?
Well, let him answer. Let him answer.
But I tell you what. Let's ask our historian friend. Outside the House of Commons, there's a statue of Oliver Cromwell. There are many Irish people who would say that in Wexford and Drogheda, he committed what they think to be massacres. Should we then get rid of the statue of Oliver Cromwell?
I have seen this. I think we have to have a wide discussion about all these statues, about people who are problematic. It includes Churchill, it includes Cromwell. There are many people that are problematic. But let's face it, no one got upset when we pulled down that statue of Jimmy Savile. Everyone thought, why was he even up there? And Colston should have come down long ago. The destruction of Colston is not the destruction of history.